Napoleon Bonaparte conquered most of Europe with an army that was often outnumbered, underfunded, and fighting on three fronts at once. He wasn't the strongest, he wasn't the wealthiest, he wasn't even French. But by the age of 35, he had turned himself into the most powerful man in human history, and it had almost nothing to do with military strategy. What Napoleon truly mastered was something far darker and far more relevant than any history book will tell you.
Born in 1769 in Corsica, an island that had only become French territory the year before his birth, Napoleon was by every means an outsider. He spoke French with an Italian accent. He was mocked at military school in Paris. He came from a family of minor, completely unknown nobility, and he spent his early years in genuine poverty. And yet, by 1804, Napoleon stood inside Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris and took the imperial crown directly from the Pope's hands to crown himself. It wasn't luck. It wasn't his birthright, and not even because of brilliance alone, but because he had quietly mastered three psychological weapons that his enemies never saw coming, each one more calculated and more unsettling than the last.
The first weapon: manufacturing the identity. Napoleon didn't inspire loyalty, he manufactured the identity. In 1796, Napoleon was handed command of the French army of Italy. This wasn't a prestigious assignment, but a punishment posting. The army hadn't been paid in months, boots were falling apart, officers had already written the campaign off as unwinnable. A standard general would have given a speech about duty and France, but Napoleon did something completely different. He walked among the soldiers, not above them, and he said something that no French commander had ever told to a common infantryman. "Soldiers, you are naked, ill-fed. The government owes you much. It can give you nothing. I will lead you into the most fertile plains in the world. Rich provinces, great cities will be in your power. There you will find honor, glory, and riches." Read that again carefully. He wasn't promising them victory. He wasn't appealing to patriotism. He was promising them a new identity. The soldier who followed Napoleon wasn't just a soldier anymore. He was a conqueror, a man with a future, a man of consequence. Modern psychology also has a name for this. It's called identity fusion, the process by which a person's individual identity becomes psychologically inseparable from a group or a leader. The same mechanism behind every cult, every mass movement, every brand that generates fanatical loyalty. Napoleon weaponized it in 1796. Within 6 months, that broken, underpaid army had won 14 consecutive battles, captured most of northern Italy, and forced the Austrian Empire to the negotiating table. The strategy didn't just motivate them, it rewired them to believe what they were supposed to believe. Napoleon's second psychological weapon was what I'd call manufacturing the intimacy. He maintained a small team of staff officers whose sole responsibility was gathering intelligence, not battlefield intelligence, but personal intelligence. Everywhere Napoleon traveled, these officers would brief him before he entered a camp. This soldier's name, his hometown, his family situation, the last battle he fought in, sometimes even the name of his wife. So when Napoleon walked through camp, and he always walked through camp alone at night, he would stop at a random soldier and say, "Ah, you were at Arcole in '96. How is your father back in Lyon?" To that soldier, it felt like a miracle. The Emperor of France knew his name, remembered, and cared for him.
What actually happened here was a calculated psychological move designed to manufacture the sensation of personal connection across an army of 600,000 men. This is the same technique every modern political leader uses, every celebrity authenticity strategy, every brand that makes you feel personally seen. Napoleon invented the formula in 1797. The effect was extraordinary. Soldiers who had never personally met Napoleon would weep at the mere mention of his name. They called him Le Petit Caporal, the Little Corporal, an intimate nickname, a term of affection for a man who was the emperor. Well done! Now that you are this far into the video, please subscribe to support me, as this takes a lot of effort into making such videos, and your support means a lot to me. And now the third weapon, and this is the one which nobody talks about. Napoleon understood, decades before psychology existed as a field, that people don't follow the truth. They follow the story they believe is the truth. So he systematically engineered his own story while he was still alive to control it. He commissioned dramatic paintings of battles, completely altering the reality of what actually happened. He personally rewrote his military dispatches before they were published. He is rumored to imprison a journalist for accurately reporting a French military defeat. And he told his inner circle something that has echoed through centuries of history. History is but a fable agreed upon. He wasn't being cynical here, but precise, in my opinion. Because the psychological truth is this: the story people believe about you carries more power than what you actually do. Now, you guys must be wondering, even after all of this, why did Napoleon fail? Well, every psychological weapon Napoleon mastered, whether it's manufacturing identity, manufactured intimacy, or the myth engineering, these weren't the products of cold, calculated genius, but of profound, consuming insecurity. Napoleon spent his entire life feeling like an outsider, the Corsican boy mocked for his accent, one who couldn't even afford the uniform his classmates wore. So when he eventually conquered Europe, he never stopped being that boy. Psychologist Alfred Adler, writing decades after Napoleon's death, identified a pattern he called overcompensation, the mechanism by which people with deep feelings of inferiority build drives for superiority so powerful, so unrelenting, that they become pathological. Napoleon is the most complete historical example of this pattern ever recorded. And here's the part that makes his story genuinely disturbing. The same psychology that built his empire is precisely what destroyed it. A man who conquers to escape his own sense of inadequacy can never stop conquering. Every victory creates the psychological need for a larger one. France wasn't enough. Italy wasn't enough. Egypt, Spain, Austria, Prussia, and then finally Russia. He didn't overextend strategically, but he overextended psychologically. Because stopping meant facing something he had spent his entire adult life running from. And he knew it. In exile on St. Helena, in the final years of his life, Napoleon said, "I have no enemies except myself." In next video, we will be decoding the psychology of Julius Caesar, how he rose to power, and what exactly led to his downfall. If you came here because you want to understand how power actually works, then subscribe. That's exactly what this channel is for. Until then, goodbye.